Welcome to Montville's Finest, the first 100 years, the podcast where we explore the rich history, unforgettable stories, the dedicated individuals who have shaped Montville Township Police Department over the past century. Today, we are honored to welcome Carl Debacco, the former Montville Township Police Chief, and a pillar of leadership and service in our community. Join us as we explore his journey in the department, the evolution of policing in Montville, and the lessons he's learned along the way. Chief, thank you for being here today.
You're welcome.
We appreciate it.
Great introduction.
So you were our fifth police chief.
Correct.
And what years did you serve?
I was hired in 1967, July of 67, and I served until the end of 2001.
And you were our police chief for many years.
Police chief for 14 years.
14 years.
Detective for 15.
Which was your favorite?
I don't know. Detective was more fun. Police chief, too many politicians involved.
What inspired you to pursue a career in law enforcement? And how did that journey lead you to Montville Township?
Contrary to popular belief, I already had a job in 1965. I was working in Associated Testing Labs over in Wayne, where the Macy's Furniture Building is now. That was our testing lab. I'd been working for 2 years, and Jim Gormley was patrolman at the time, would stop in at the gas station, which is now Jiffy Lube, and he'd pester the hell out of me to be a police officer because he needed one more police officer to be on the force so he can break loose and start a detective bureau. And that's what he wanted to be. He wanted to be a detective. So he pestered me to a point where I agreed to take the test. And I went to Morristown High School when the day came, took the test, and there were 6 other people there taking the test from Montville. Unfortunately, I was the only one that passed. So I had a decision to make. I was making good money at the lab, and there was things happening at the lab that were pretty dangerous. I figured, what the hell? I'll sign up to be a cop. I took a cut in pay. I swore in as a police officer in Montville Township. And first day of work, Jack was a chief at the time. We came in on the job, no training, right off the streets, regular civilians. He gave me to the police officer who was the firearms instructor, Harold Wright. He said, take him to the range. He took me over to Conklin's Pit, the back of the farm, and he handed me a .38 revolver with a big bulge in the barrel, you know. And he said, load it up, and he threw a can out, and he said, shoot the can. I never shot a pistol before, but I had a .22 rifle, and I had a 12 gauge, so I knew how to shoot. Sure. And I shot the can. I hit it a couple times. He said reload. He gave me 6 more bullets. I reloaded, shot the same thing, hit the can a couple times. He said, okay. Went back to headquarters. He went to the chief. He said, he can shoot. And that was it.
Welcome to the police department?
Yeah, that was my qualification. They put me on the road for a couple days with another patrolman just to learn where the boundaries were, right, and where the hot spots were. And then after 3 days or 4 days, I was on the road by myself.
Can you share a defining moment in your career that shaped your approach to leadership?
Well, I was a street kid from Newark, okay, so I had a little bit of street knowledge, right, and had a good feeling of common sense. And what I learned, being on the streets, is how to take care of yourself and how to deal with bullies and how to more or less con bullies out of what they're after. I remember I used to go to school and I had the lunch money, and they used to shake us down for lunch money on the way to school. And I used to hide my quarter between my fingers and show I don't have any money. Check my pockets. I checked my pocket, couldn't find anything, but I had it between my fingers. Sometimes I put it in my sock, but we had to do what we had to do to keep what we had. And that just carried me through. And if anything happened, we used common sense, and to the point where the guys used to come to me to find out how to take care of a problem they came up with, and I gave them the answers, and that's where it went for my whole career.
What were some of the biggest changes you witnessed in policing during the time in the police department?
When I came on in the mid-'60s, the drug culture was starting to pick up. LSD, marijuana, heroin, all the pills and everything else. And the point that really bothered us was that they were attacking police officers. The police officers were the targets. And a lot of militant groups would take out police departments or ambush police officers. And the only thing we had for firearms was our sidearm. Right. And we did have a shotgun, but usually that was not enough. So I went out and I found a firearms manufacturer locally, actually Plainfield. And I talked to them about getting firearms or military style M1 carbines. And I talked them into selling to us at police department rates, at cut rates. And I went to the guys, I said, we can buy M1 carbines, and all I need is your signature on paperwork, and I'll do all the running around. I just collected money from them, went to the manufacturer, I did all the paperwork, and I collected the guns, brought them in, and issued them to the guys. So when the time came that we were driving around, we had M1 carbines in the car, so the guys didn't feel that they were left out there to hang. The drug culture really took us out, because we did a lot of arrests with drugs. Sure. We had a lot of kids. I take the drugs away from them, and flush them down the toilet, and just tell them to go home and tell your father, you had this stuff on you, because next time I catch you, we're gonna charge you. But most of the times, they were decent kids.
Yeah. So you guys had to purchase those weapons yourselves?
We purchased them ourselves.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, and then later on, the same thing happened again when Ruger came out with the Mini 14. We purchased them as police officers on our own.
Looking back, what accomplishment during your tenure are you most proud of?
Well, first of all, I designed this building.
That's true. That's true.
Never got to sit in it,
That's
but
true.
I designed it.
Yeah.
Most of the accomplishments were that I took care of the guys, and it was a great bunch of guys. We had a high reputation in the county, in the state, and even in the federal guys we ran into. They really appreciated the way we stood up and took care of the people. And that's, a lot of the programs we started. We started their program, or I started their program. Explorer program was started prior to me coming on, but I, put more effort into the DARE program, into the Explorer program.
The Explorer program is still going strong today.
I know, it's still going strong, and I see them because I'm also a vet, disabled vet, and I see it through the VFW. I put in for civilians to ride along with the police officers, okay. So that the civilians would see how it was for the police officers to handle situations as they came up daily. I hired the first female officer in Montville. I think it was the second one locally in the county, except for Morristown, because they had female officers. I wouldn't have a motorcycle squad. That's one thing I would not do.
No.
Guys were asking me to be. They wanted a motorcycle squad, and I said no. I rode motorcycles, and no, you're not having.
Not doing it.
It's not worth it. I'm not getting you guys hurt just because you want to ride a motorcycle.
So when you came on, how many police officers were there?
I think counting me was 12.
And then when you left?
When I left, when I retired, it was 44.
44.
Yeah.
That's a huge increase over all that time.
Yeah. I don't know if I should get into. I'll get into this. 2 months into my police role, and back in '65, I got a notice from the Department of Defense. I got my draft notice. I went to the chief, who was Jackwitz at the time. I said, Chief, I got a draft notice. What do you want me to do? I says, police were exempt from joining the service. So he said, my son's going, you're going. I said, fine, it's okay with me. The job will be here when I come back.
Right.
A couple months later, I wound up, going through military, going through the Army training, and I was sent to Vietnam. And I was there 5.5 hours, and I was involved in a mortar attack to the air base in Tan Son Nhut, outside of Saigon, and I wound up in a hospital for 2.5 months.
Well, thank you for your service.
Yeah, well, you're welcome, but that was nothing I did to do anything.
When you look back, can you describe a particular, memorable case or incident that you worked on?
There's one case that always stays in my mind, not because of the gruesomeness or the badness of the case, is because I'll just tell you about what happened, and you can decide. I was a sergeant at the time, detective sergeant, We had a motel in town where two individuals rented a room. They cleaned out the room. They took out the television, the lamp, anything that wasn't nailed down. They even took nails out, the ones that were nailed down. Clerk called us up. I went down, got a description, and two white males. One was 6'3", he was a short guy. There was another guy who was 6'5".
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so they were very recognizable. Next morning, I received a response, and Clifton PD called up and says, "We have your guys. We know who they are." I said, "Give me pictures." I took the pictures to the motel. I recognized the two guys that stole the property. I made out warrants. I called Clifton up. "We got warrants for your two residents, and you pick them up, let us know." That evening, they picked them up. And he says, "Tomorrow morning, come and get them. But when you do come and get them, bring candy bars." And he says, "The guys are going through withdrawals bad." He says, "They're going to need candy bars by the time they come here and pick them up." George Kufta was the other detective, Lieutenant Kufta. He was the other detective with me. And on the way down, we stopped at a store. We bought 4 large candy bars, 2 each. And we went down and we got into where they were held up in the cell. And I said, "You guys are going for a ride?" And the guy says, he just shrugged, and I handed him 4 candy bars. He says, they said, "Thanks." And they scoffed them down so fast, I don't think they took the wrappers off. We cuffed them, brought them in. They gave it up. After we gave them Miranda and did all the things we had to do, they said, "Yeah, they did it." I said, "Well, any other jobs that you did, you might as well confess now." And they gave us 5 other jobs in the area. And they said, "How about Clifton? Do anything in Clifton?" He said, "No, that's where we live. We don't do anything in Clifton." It was all done. We did all the paperwork. We called the other towns up and said that we got your case cleared on this and this date, and we got the guys that did it. So you want to put detainers? We're going to be up the county jail in Morristown. So we were finished up, and it was lunchtime. I said, "Do you want something for lunch? You have burgers? You want the ham and cheese? What do you want for lunch?" He says, "We'd really want a pizza." I says, "Pizza?" I said, "Okay." I intercommed the desk, and I said, "Have the guys go down to the local pizzeria, get 3 pies.
Right.
I'm buying." I said, "Tell the guys on the road if they want pizza, stop in the DB, and you're gonna have pizza." The interrogation room, we had the 2 detectives, 2 guys we arrested, the junkies, and uniformed officers were all standing there having pizza.
Right.
And they're all BSing together like they were friends. And they were talking, and nobody was yelling or moaning and nothing. So they had a good time. They ate pizza, and 4 o'clock came, and we put them in a lockup in the holding cell. And during that time, we had another detective come on at 12 o'clock. McCarthy came out at 12 o'clock, and they had a situation down at the bank on 46. They had a flyer about a man coming around and using like a scam. He was a doctor, and he opened up some starter accounts that he would scam the bank out of money. And he went down and took care of him, brought him back, processed him, put him in the other lockup. We had two holding cells. And they wouldn't take him at the county until after 6, because after dinner was over, then they'd take prisoners in. So McCarthy and another uniformed officer had the 3 prisoners in the back of the car, and they're driving down 287, and Mac hears the back door swing open. He's doing over 60 miles an hour, and there's the guy that they brought in from the bank halfway out the door. He's ready to bail out of the car.
He tried to leave the car.
The other 2 guys that we arrested were pulling him back in. They pulled him back in. I got all this the next day when I talked to Mac, and he said, I asked him, "What happened?" He says, "The guy tried to jump out of the car." He says, "If he got out of the car, he would have been killed."
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And he said, the 2 guys that we arrested, they pulled him in, they sat on him until he got to the jail. At the jail, he told the jailers that this is, the guys, these guys did this to a prisoner that was trying to escape. So he said, "Take care of these 2 guys." He put $10 in their account so they would have money for cigarettes and stuff. He says he asked them why you did that. He said, "You guys were good to us." Yeah. He said, "You didn't treat us like garbage." And he says, "We don't want to let this AH be a problem to you, because if he got killed, Mac would have been fired.
Yeah.
We would have had more problems under the town. The town would have been sued. Mac probably would have been sued personally. They would have to come up with another plan on how to transport prisoners so the state would get involved. He says, those guys really saved their ass.
Wow.
By bringing them back in. He says,
Yeah.
that's, out of everything, the humanity of two hardcore junkies. They knew they were hardcore junkies. They had no doubts about what they were, and I'm sure they're long dead by now. But that's one thing that really sticks in my mind. That you treat people good, and almost immediately it was returned back to you.
Yeah, that human kindness, right?
Yeah,
To
human
one
kindness.
another.
We treated them naturally. Well, usually when I arrested anybody, I said we can do one of two things. I could be your best friend. I can be your worst fucking nightmare.
Right.
He says, it's up to you. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
And usually people, they start talking nice, and they say, I'll treat you like you treat me. You treat me nice, I'll treat you nice.
Right. That little bit of that respect and human dignity.
Yeah, it's
go a
just
long way.
yeah. And a lot of times the guys can't help themselves. They're so screwed up in life.
Yeah.
That's the
Right.
one that really sticks with my mind.
Who are some of the officers that you remember
Working with?
working with it when you first came on?
Jackowitz was a pain in the ass. When I first came on, he was a chief, and he would have you always had to have your hat on in the car
Okay.
and drive with both hands on the wheel. That was his rule.
edict.
Yeah, he says that's what you're going to do. And he had a white. We were driving Buicks. They were black and white LeSabres at the time, and he had a white LeSabre. And occasionally, when we were short of cars, we'd have to use his car to patrol. And I was patrolling in his white car. And I'm driving down the road, arm on the window, one hand, no hat, and he goes by me in the other direction. I said, oh, hell, I'm going to catch it this time. I was only on, I was before I went to the service, only on 2 months. I get into headquarters, and George Kufta's walking out of headquarters. He says, you driving the chief's car? I said, yeah. So I got my ass chewed out by the chief. He thought I was driving it. I said, no, it was me. He says, just keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything to him. He said, so he took it. He took the heat for me.
Yeah, he took that one.
Yeah, he took that one. That was, George and I were good at after that. We used to have names for each other. Like my nickname was Rocky, because Mel used to call me Rocky Debacco. So that was my nickname. Parker's name was Snake. Teddy's name was Rat. McCarthy's name was Squirrel. I forget. I think they called Rudy Tin Man, because he had an operation or something, and he called him Tin Man. And we had all the guys had different names.
Right.
And it was nice because it was more of a camaraderie that we called each other by separate names.
Absolutely. What were some of the challenges when you became police chief that you had to overcome?
Before police chief, the main problem was politicians. We had a mayor that was a bully. No matter what we did, he wanted to do it his way. Gormley, who was the chief before me, he was a friend of the mayor, and he did what the mayor wanted to do, and he was promoted, up the ranks. And not saying that that he didn't deserve it. He deserved it, but he didn't make waves. But when it came down to putting the mayor in his place, I would do that. Sure. If the chief told me to do something that I didn't want to do, that the mayor wanted done, I said, we're not doing it. You can't do that. One comes to mind. One of the mayor's friends, close friends' house was burglarized. I sent a detective to investigate. He investigated like any other house, dusted for prints, took evidences. We found it and searched in the neighborhood and talked to the neighbors. And when he came in, he did his report. The next day, the chief comes to my office and says, he didn't do a good enough job, have him go back to the house again, because the mayor called him up and told him that the job wasn't done well enough. I sent him back to the house. And the guy comes back after the investigation, says, now there's more stuff missing than the first day. I said, all right, put in a report. Yeah. Next day, the mayor calls the chief comes to me, says, he didn't do a good enough job, have him go back to the house.
For a third time?
Third time. Went back to the house. The detective comes back, he says, Now there's stuff missing that I saw in the house the first time. He said there was a fur coat in the closet in the hall, golf clubs in the closet. He says they were there when I went there the first time. I said, put in a report, put it that you saw them there the first time. I took all 3 reports, because there was 3 copies of 3 reports, because it was supplemental for each day. I went to the chief's office, and I said, here's the reports. You want to separate them and put them out there for the records clerk? I says, you do that. He says, remember, I made a copy. I says, now you get this guy and tell him that he doesn't get involved in police work. And they said, I told the clerk, the records clerk, he says, anybody calls up, any insurance company calls up, you talk to me. They'd get involved in everything. I tell you, when I wanted to promote a patrolman, actually a detective, to sergeant. Mm-hmm. And I went to the township committee, and I made the presentation to the township committee, because we're civil service. I told the administrator who I wanted to promote to sergeant, and he, at the township committee meeting, brought it up, and I went before the township committee, said, I want to make this person sergeant. The mayor said, no, we don't want him. He said, you're going to come back in 2 weeks, next meeting. He says, you're going to give me another name. He wanted somebody else.
Sure.
So the next meeting came, I gave him the same name. He started to get pissed off. He said, 2 weeks, I want another name. Came back 2 weeks, gave him the same name. He said, we're not making him, we're making this guy. So they promoted the other guy. I took him to Superior Court, I sued him. It's Carl Debacco versus the Township of Montville. And the Superior Court said, the police chief runs the department. Mayor does not run the department. Yeah. The mayor takes care of the budget. What the police chief says goes. It goes to him, to the administrator to you, and you have no say on who the person's going to be. So what transpired is they downplayed the guy that they promoted as sergeant, brought him back to patrolman, and they fired the administrator.
Wow.
That's when Landau came in.
Yeah.
So when he came in, he said, well, we're going to do 2 things. We're going to promote your guy and the mayor's guy. I said, well,
so you got 2 promotions.
I got 2 promotions. I only wanted 1, but I got 2 promotions. I used to give reports to the township committee on overtime and on spending. We had a lot of overtime, a lot of money for overtime. So I got my pencil and paper out. I took the cost of a new patrolman, the cost of training, the cost of insurance, the cost of clothing. I put all the figures together and I came up with a number, and it was like $25,000 less than we were spending
on
overtime. And he would cover one of the spots, it would be $25,000 less. I says, if we put a man on, we'd save $25,000, plus we'd have more manpower to take care of the public. And I gave it to the administrator. And I also gave a copy, because the newspaper reporters would come around. I says, don't put this in the paper until Monday, because I was waiting for them to respond to me from this, and I can give you a response that they gave me. They put it in Saturday's paper. So they jumped the gun. They brought me up on charges. They had 17 charges, like insubordination, failure to do, and illegal use of letterhead. They found me guilty on 1 charge, illegal use of letterhead. Yeah. And I found out later that the person I gave the letter to gave it to the administrator. He read it on a Thursday, and he lied when he said he didn't read it. They gave me 5-day suspension. Right. And my secretary had a house. This is in the wintertime. My secretary had a condo down on the below Atlantic City on the beach. And I spent a week on our condo. Didn't cost me anything. We went to the city. We made up twice as much as I lost. So they gave me a vacation at twice the salary.
Right. Just
so
being suspended for a few days.
There were so many things that I had to go against the mayor with that was my 24-hour day job.
What were some of the more humorous parts of moments in your career?
I laughed every week. I said, it's a job that you either had to love or you shouldn't be there. I said, I loved coming to work. We had fun. We took care of problems. We took care of the public. During the drug craze and the marijuana craze, we used to go up to the orchard where the Montclair State had property, and the kids from the college used to go up there and hang out and have drug parties and booze parties. We used to go up there. We used to sit down because we were just in regular clothes. Yeah. We used to sit down. They used to pass us the joint. You get up. Okay, you're under arrest. And then we just shoot them out a little bit and kick them out of the area.
Got
so don't come back. Yeah, don't come back to Montville. We used to patrol. They had the graduation party in high school. The kids. We had a peach orchard in town. The kids used to get alcohol and they'd go up to the peach orchard and they'd drive their cars up there. We'd be like wrangling cows. We'd have 3 police cars. We'd chase them from one area to another. The other car would chase them back to another spot. We had them circling in the orchard because it was a huge place, a lot of area, and we used to wrangle them like you wrangle cows.
Well, looking today, like, what do you think are some of the most important qualities of a police officer?
Oof, you have to have fun. You have to come on the job with a sense of humor. You have to be patient with the public. You have to know what their problems are, and you have to treat them like you're their big brother. I don't care how old they are, you're the big brother. And if you don't do that, if you don't want to be that kind of person, you shouldn't have to be a police officer, because the job is important enough that if you have a bad attitude, causing everybody problems, not only you but your superior officers.
What advice would you give a person who wants to get into law enforcement?
Again, you have to enjoy what you're doing. If you don't enjoy it, don't come. Advice, you have to have common sense. You have to be able to take care of yourself. Your head has to be on a swivel. You have to keep on looking around. You have to know what's going on around you. You walk in, I don't care where you walk in. You walk in a diner, you walk into a restaurant, you walk into a service station. You have to know what's going on around you, because there's too many things that can happen. And you can be on the short end of any stick at any time. I was on when LaMonica got shot on 80.
The trooper.
Yeah, the trooper. And unfortunately, he got shot in the arm, and he couldn't lift his gun up high enough to shoot the guy's back. He put all his rounds into the hood of the car. But that's, you have to go out there with the idea that you're also a target. Right. You're the one that's going to help them, but you're also a target.
So you had a bunch of initiatives and programs that you introduced over the course of your career. What do you think was one that left the most lasting?
I was thinking community policing, because I wanted to get the guys involved in the community, to let them know that they're not apart from the community but a part of it. We had the bike ride along. We had the bicycles that we did. I even rode around with my own bike when we bought bikes for the guys. Built this building. I didn't build it, but I designed it. And they cut it by 25%. And I said, don't cut it because you're going to need the extra room in the future. But they cut it in, I think it was like 2 years, and I already ran out of room. I even had the downstairs on the first level, I had an office with an outside entrance for the state police. I wanted the state police to have it like a little annex where they can come and do their paperwork or bring a prisoner in to talk to them. They cut that out. Right. I had a workout area, so the guys can come in, instead of going to a gym, they can come here and work out. And we put machines in, and if even the guys on midnight shift, they can come in and take a shower and freshen up and go back on the road again.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's another thing that they didn't hold on to.
What do you hope your legacy is within the police department?
My legacy is you. Whatever you do, I'm living off of that. I did what I had to do. Now it's your turn. You do what you have to do. And I really don't honor what you're doing, because it's like the cops are wearing the handcuffs, not the bad guys. Sure. And unfortunately, that's the way we're heading, and hopefully that direction's going to change.
What do you miss most about the time in the department?
What I miss most? I miss most the guys, camaraderie, and talking to them and taking care of problems that came up, and the laugh. We used to laugh a lot.
It was a tight group of guys back then?
Oh yeah, we're pretty tight. There was a couple of guys that if I was the platoon sergeant in Vietnam, I would have to go out in the minefield with a sledgehammer to look for mines. But most of the guys are aces, because we had a great reputation with the county, state, and the FBI that we did touch bases with.
How do you spend some time in retirement, and do you stay connected with the law enforcement community?
I have lunch with you every couple of months.
We do, and it's great.
I had breakfast with Rudy this morning.
All right.
Rudy, the ex-chief.
Yeah. So
I see Teddy every once in a while. He's the chief after me. We got a county chiefs, retired chiefs breakfast every month. We go to breakfast. So I do keep tabs, and the guys that are still left that I hired, they said that they missed me because they wanted me back as
they want
chief.
you back.
I said, no, I couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah. So, kind of final question, but what message would you like to share with like the current officers of the police department?
The two of them's the same. You got to be happy what you're doing.
It's a tough job, but you gotta love doing what you're doing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. If you come home, if you come to work and you're grumpy, and it follows through with whatever you're doing. Mm-hmm. When I was on the road, I pulled over more people than I think most of the guys put together. And I gave out less summonses. I said, you talk to people, you find out what's going on in town.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
You're nice to them, you talk to them, you say, just don't do this again, and pat them on the back, your car's in good shape, and you talk to them and let them go, and they're happy.
Right.
I've had,
I'm sure it paid dividends over your career.
Huh?
I'm sure it paid dividends over your career.
Oh, it did. And one situation, it was a bad situation. I don't even know if I should go. Let me go into it. We had a guy that had a complaint about police officers giving him a summons, and he came into my office. He was screaming and moaning that he's a taxpayer, he lives in town, and they gave him a summons, he had to pay the summons. And his wife came in with him, they tag teamed me. When she would yell at me, she'd stop, he would yell at me, he'd stop, she would yell at me, so they tag teamed me. And I listened to everything, and after they were finished, I says, let me talk to the police officer, see what he has to say. I talked to the officer, it was one of the better guys, he says, they did it, obviously, I had to give him a ticket, but he says, I gave him the lesser of everything, and they wouldn't listen, and that's what happened. So, fine. I called him up and says, this is what the officer said. If you don't want it, you can go to the court and complain, and you can do what you have to do. 2 weeks later, I get a call from one of the detectives. The husband and wife were watching their next door neighbor's house. The wife was using the next door neighbor's car, and she went to put the car in the garage. When she got into the car, she started it up. The car took off in reverse, full speed. Back down the driveway, hit trees, bounced off of trees. And stupid thing she did is she put it in drive. She put it in drive and went back into the past the trees, into the garage, hit the wall, and it killed her. I says, you have somebody sit with them, take care of them, make them coffee, make the phone calls. I said, you treat this like a homicide. Yeah. I said, if anything comes out of it, they're probably going to sue the auto manufacturer. I said, treat it like a homicide. Take full pictures, take pictures of everything, trees, whatever happened, inside the hood, everything, take pictures. They did that. A couple weeks after that, the husband comes into my office. He has a picture in a frame, with God and the man with the finger that was it Michelangelo? I forget what it is. He gives me he says, I never realized what you guys do. He said, until something bad happened to me, I never realized how good the cops were. And that really got to me. Because,
of course.
Yeah. I still have that hanging in my house.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, but you know what? It goes back to the way we treat people, right?
Yeah, it goes back to how you treat them. And and I let him come in and vent. He vented, and I talked to the officer, and he says, "This is what happened. I didn't," and they just blew up on him. They did the same thing. They blew up on him. So that's what happened, and that's one of the cases that really gets to me, because it's how you handle the public, not how the public handles you.
Right.
And you always have to be the big brother. Yeah. That's what It's not a Superman badge. It's just something that goes on your chest. That it resembles a shield that hopefully will stop the bullet if it comes towards you. That's about it.
And we're there to protect people and help them in their worst times.
Yeah, so. We're here. We're there. We're not only helping people, we help everybody. We help their kids, we help their grandparents, we help everybody.
Absolutely. Well, Chief, thank you so much for being
Thank
here
you.
today. I appreciate it. So, thank you for joining us for this episode of Montville's Finest, the first 100 years. A very special thank you to you for sharing your insight and your stories. And thank you for all who are tuning in and as we celebrate the history of Montville Township Police Department. This podcast is made possible through a partnership with the Montville Township Historical Society. Be sure to subscribe, share, and join us next time as we continue to uncover the stories and people that we have shaped Montville Township Police Department.